Hey cuties, what's up? We are back with some more Reactions After Dark, and today we're going to be watching Mothman, the lost film that was stopped by the Mafia, obviously by Blame It on Jorge. Now, yesterday I was saying that, because we were doing essentially like a lost media video by Nexpo, right? That we might as well go do a Blame It on Jorge video today because he's like the lost media guy. So I figured that would be apropos, right? I mean, this is like our first time doing Blame It on Jorge, though. I mean, I've known of him and I've been watching him for years, right? It's just I haven't watched any of his stuff recently because of the event of me ever coming and doing it on Rad. Uh, but we are here with Blame It on Jorge. There's some. Oh yeah, I did just try to watch the 2000s childhood trauma video that he made. I was going to do that today instead, but at the very beginning you see the iceberg list, and I'm like, all this stuff I know of, basically, and it just felt like it wasn't going to be interesting at all because I know all of it, and even then, it's like, okay, it's just the stuff that's on it I'm pretty sure wouldn't be that interesting either, unless there's stuff about it that I didn't know, but most of that stuff is just like, eh. And to use a word that you would be using back in those times, it all seemed very like weak sauce stuff. Like I wanted some like deep, dark stuff, but the stuff on the bottom of the iceberg was all stuff that people already know. So that should be stuff like nobody knows about, like just deep-seated secret trauma, not freaking boobas and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it would have been crazier than I thought, but we're gonna do this one because this one just seems because I don't know what this is, and it seems like it might be true crime as well because we have the Mafia involved. Also, this video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. I've already gotten past the uh, ad because the first minute of the video is an ad for Manta Sleep. Link in the description. Looks like a tiny URL link as well. Obviously, viewer discretion is advised.
Hey guys, Blue on George here, and a few years ago, I mentioned a bizarre lost film titled Mothman in my Lost Films iceberg. At the time, all we knew about the film was that it was an independent 90s film by Doug TenNapel that never saw the light of day. Despite some early buzz and even a trailer, Mothman was never released, becoming lost media. On the surface, it sounded like a typical lost media story, one of those many low-budget films that got shelved due to production troubles. But oh no, Mothman runs much deeper than a simple canceled project. Recently, a friend
Damn it, we're saying like the Mafia canceled it. I also had this on 4080 just because it was like stuttering too much, but maybe it'd be fine. Also, in the 2000s video, he called himself George, which is weird. When did he start calling himself George? It's Blame It on Jorge, not George. Does he go by George now instead of Jorge? Like what? Or was that just a joke? I'm confused on that.
friend of mine, Matthew and LG, dug deep into the film's history and uncovered something much darker. Matthew gave me the okay to share his findings on my channel, but I highly recommend giving this documentary a watch. This is the story of Mothman, the film that was stopped by the Mafia. In the late 1990s, Doug TenNapel, known for creating Earthworm Jim, embarked on an ambitious film project titled Mothman. The idea originated from TenNapel's fascination with the folklore creature of the same name. Back in the 90s, he had been commissioned to illustrate a book about urban legends, one of which was The Mothman.
I didn't realize this was like Earthworm Jim guy. Granted, I've never really played Earthworm Jim, but it is one of those classic video games that people are obsessed about.
Winged, red-eyed cryptid, said to have terrorized the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, in the 1960s.
Also, I love cryptids. I love these like monsters and all this stuff. I love this stuff. Which, speaking of Mothman, yeah, I played a lot of Fallout 76, and Mothman's in that. Because the game takes place in, is it Virginia? Point Pleasant is a place in 76 because Fallout games take place in real places. So that's why it has Mothman and all that kind of stuff in it. Again, I love cryptids.
60s. TenNapel was captivated by the idea of this eerie creature and envisioned a story of the Mothman returning in modern times. According to an archived webpage about the film, it was set to star Ed Schofield playing Ellis Gladson, a struggling animator who encounters the Mothman. He tries to tell locals from West Virginia, but no one believes him, and he becomes an outcast.
Just give me a second. I'm just gonna drop this to 480. We can't handle the 60
Alex
FPS.
teams up with a character named Old Man Hudson, and it's up to them to prove that the creature really exists. All the while, they're being followed by a mysterious man in black, who is also hunting the Mothman. By all accounts, it sounds like an interesting film. So, what happened? Well, TenNapel's dream project faced production issues. He initially secured a budget of $650,000.
I mean, that's a lot of money. Granted, a lot of movies are using millions and millions and getting close to $1 billion, which I don't even know how you waste $1 billion making a film. It seems like like a big waste of money to me, but sure.
But that fell through. According to the same webpage, the financing dwindled first to $150,000, and then to an ultra-frugal $60,000 before
Oof. What did Paranormal Activity run off of? Was it like 15,000?
shooting even began. The drastic budget cuts forced TenNapel to slash the shooting schedule to just 15 days and let go of about 90% of his crew. What started as a reasonable indie film budget was now shoestring at best. Despite the hardships, filming did proceed, and the production crew decided to travel to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, home of the Mothman legend. But this is where strange things began to occur. At first, the locals gave TenNapel and his crew a warm welcome. The filmmakers stayed at the historic Low Hotel. Began to occur. At first, the
Are these locals in the background? Because if we're talking about the Mafia, I mean, can you argue this guy couldn't be any more blatant of a Mafia guy? Unless this guy is just part of the film. But if they're just passerbys watching, you'd think maybe this guy could be Mafia. He looks like a wise guy, right? Suit, fedora.
The locals gave TenNapel and his crew a warm welcome. The filmmakers stayed at the historic Low Hotel and spent their first days filming at various spots. One of these spots was the Harris Steakhouse, a beloved little diner with checkerboard floors and jukebox booths. The owner, Carolyn Harris, was happy to help and allowed the crew to film at her diner. According to Matthew's interview with Doug TenNapel, there were a few local guys around watching the film crew work. The crew didn't think much of it, and Doug even asked if they wanted to be in the film as like background extras. The men coldly declined. One of the crew members later recounted that it felt like those guys were, quote, keeping an eye on them, which is strange, but Point Pleasant is a small town, so filming pressed onwards. Over the next 2 days, the vibe of Point Pleasant took a bad turn.
Again, like, who are you? Also, this old guy? A wolf in sheep's clothing, possibly?
Strangers began to show up where they were filming and started to heckle. By the third day of filming, a few locals were openly yelling at the crew to go home and that they weren't wanted.
But what is strange is that Doug TenNapel did mention that he had to get his wife to change their phone number back in California, all the way over on the West Coast. So I don't know, whoever was going after the crew and threatening Doug TenNapel's crew, trying to scare them, evidently put a lot of work into it, because apparently they were calling his house number back in California as well, and he had to phone his wife, Angie TenNapel, asking her to change their phone number over in Los Angeles kind of area.
Would that even make a difference back in the 90s? Because your number is public information in the phone book, question mark. They could just be like, okay, let's just go look at the phone book and see what your number is now. I mean, I don't know how fast they update phone books, but back in the day, if anyone even knows what the heck I'm talking about, if you're under the age of 8,000, you probably don't know what the heck I'm talking about, but that's how it felt like things were back then. Like, everybody's number was just in a phone book. You could just grab a phone book, white pages, yellow pages, whatever, and like shift through all the numbers in there and just find who you wanted to call, question mark.
Then came the phone calls. On the third night, the desk phone at the hotel started ringing with anonymous calls. Employees at the hotel where the crew were staying reported that someone kept calling with an ominous message, that the film people needed to get out of town immediately or else.
But I mean, basically what a bunch of the crew were telling me was that, Jay Holden, the producer and cinematographer, he told me that they were getting phone calls at this hotel they were staying in, telling the crew to leave or else, that kind of thing. He also said they were getting letters. That were basically death threats, telling them to get out of there, or else something bad will happen to them physically. And whoever these people were who were sending these things, I mean, this was very direct, threatening behavior.
It had gotten so bad that, for safety, the team instituted a buddy system, meaning nobody in the crew would go anywhere in town alone. Wherever they were going.
Also, that isn't supposed to be the Mothman outfit because that's pretty oof for the 90s, but I mean, they had $60,000, so.
They had to make sure they paired up. It had gotten that bad. Now, it's worth noting something odd that the film crew kept seeing around town. Nearly every little store or cafe they filmed in had these video gambling machines. It's a little weird, but keep this in mind for later. The photo shown here was taken by one of TenNapel's crew, Matt Basford, who recorded his friends filming in Point Pleasant.
It was very odd for the crew running into these machines. One member of the crew, he was an electrician for the film. He told me that he walked into, just the most random of places they'd have these gambling machines, these video slot machines, in the most odd places that you just would not expect to find them. Like, shops that were not gambling joints at all. They'd be maybe some sort of convenience store or hardware store, and they'd be these spanking new gambling machines, these electronic gambling machines, all the bells and whistles and everything. And he thought that was very odd when he just kept seeing them. Now, I've since been told that these gambling machines were illegal.
I mean, of
This
course.
was before gambling was legalized in West Virginia, and I've been told by several locals that these gambling machines were illegal. They were not meant to be there. It's unclear where the money was going to.
I would assume just not even just the fact that they were put there illegally, just having a gambling machine in a establishment that isn't for gambling, I would assume is just illegal by default. On top of, comboing that with them just being illegally there to begin with. Like multiple layers of illegal.
By their third night in Point Pleasant, some of the locals told Doug TenNapel something terrifying. According to the locals, a mafia had been operating a large illegal marijuana farm in nearby woods. In other words, the crew may have accidentally stumbled upon and filmed in someone's criminal territory. I know this sounds bizarre, right? A mafia existing in a small rural town in West Virginia, but there is.
Well, I mean, it's the Mothman location, but it does sound like crazy that Point Pleasant or whatever has the mafia hanging out, and they're just like that scared of like a camera crew movie being made.
There's some anecdotal evidence to back this up. According to the Point Pleasant Register, a notorious hitman was once asked on a TV show some mafia-related questions. When asked, quote, "Where is the best place to kill someone and get away with it?" the hitman's answer was allegedly Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the very town the crew was in. This newspaper article from December 1997 coincided with the time TenNapel and his crew were filming. Granted, I have no idea who this hitman is, which talk show this was on, or even if this episode really exists. So,
like, was this a threat?
Lost media mystery for you.
I tried looking for this news clip, like what talk show was it specifically, that kind of thing. I was not able to pin it down and find it, but I was told by some of the crew and also even from some of the locals that it was probably Geraldo Rivera's show. I was told Doug TenNapel said it was Geraldo Rivera, and I think some other people may have said it was Geraldo Rivera as well. I can't recall, but Doug TenNapel, he was adamant that it was Geraldo Rivera's show. And Michael Taylor wrote that article that you mentioned. He was a local from Point Pleasant, and he was very helpful, and I spoke to him. And it's been a long time. He did not remember, like, the clip itself. I don't think he saw the clip. He said this was just kind of a rumor going around town,
But there was mafia-related activity going on at the time, like with Paul Hankish, a major organized crime figure in Wheeling, West Virginia. I know West Virginia Mafia might sound a little silly, but back in the 1990s, many people in West Virginia were openly talking about organized crime in the states, especially connected to gambling. For instance, in 1994, a Charleston Gazette editorial quipped that West Virginia was, quote, "once again the center of the mafia pie." The writer complained that the state was becoming a base for illegal ventures, using gambling to launder drug money. Quote, "Besides being the cocaine connection, now we have to be the base of the illegal drug money laundering called gambling," the piece lamented. Fast forward to 1997, the very year Mothman was filming. That spring, the West Virginia legislature was embroiled in a huge fight over gambling, specifically whether to allow a casino at the Greenboro Resort. One April 1997 newspaper here, Gazette editorial, described the, quote, "hysteria over possible gambling at the Greenboro as an absurd sideshow, laced with hypocrisy." And
It's so weird that West Virginia, the Mothman location, was such a hotspot for mafia and like criminal activity. Like, I would have never even guessed or assumed that was a thing. I mean, I don't know where they hang out, so that's, I don't know, part of it. I just don't know. I don't know where I would think they would be hanging out. Like New York, I guess, maybe. Any of those places, New York, New Jersey, any of that stuff up there, I guess.
And why hypocrisy? Well, because as the paper pointed out, lawmakers were wringing their hands over a legal casino while doing, quote, "nothing at all about perhaps 5,000 illegal video poker gambling machines already operating openly across West Virginia." Those illegal machines, the same type the Mothman crew had noticed, were, quote, "gobbling maybe 200 million a year in countless shops."
Why though? Like, who's going in there and using them? You would think, oh, these are, the people would be like eventually understand, like, these are for the mafia? Question mark. Why would I give the mafia money, right?
That later said the whole thing felt like a mafia battle over who controlled gambling in the states. Even the legal gambling groups were acting like rival gangs trying to protect their territory. Meanwhile, illegal gambling thrived. By 1997, those video poker machines, often called gray machines, had proliferated in bars, convenience stores, and so on, generating huge cash flows under the table. There's a few more newspapers to go through. Matthew uncovered a bunch of stuff that alludes to criminal activities in the area, so all credit goes to him. So back in 1995, West Virginia's House Speaker, Chuck Chambers, warned lawmakers to be careful. He pointed to what happened in Louisiana, where gambling had been legalized, and things got messy. A big article in the Wall Street Journal said that the gambling industry was full of problems. The Mafia got involved, the FBI was investigating, and many of the promises made by the casinos just never came true. The report said that the industry was in constant scandal, with a lot of shady deals between politicians and casino owners. Even worse, 15 people were caught and admitted to serious crimes. The FBI even had secret recordings of lawmakers possibly taking bribes from gambling lobbyists. Chambers still thought gambling could work in West Virginia one day, but he warned that there were bad apples in the business. All this points to West Virginia at the time as being a place where organized crime and gambling intersected. This even dates back to the 1970s. Here's an article from 1971. Sergeant D.L. Lemon of the South Charleston State Police Detachment is not a destructive man by nature, but when he received orders to destroy these 5 slot machines, he made short work of it. The one-armed bandits, as some people refer to them, belonged to Leo Calandros of Point Pleasant. The machines were seized during a raid and stored in the federal building here until about a month ago. At the time, Richard Paxton of Charleston attempted to pick the machines up when a court order obtained by Calandros' attorney had them released.
What do they do with the money? Inside the machines, when they destroy them, they just get to keep it? Everyone just gets a raise or something? Does it go into the government? You know, what happens to that money? You know, what happens to the money that police confiscate from like drug dealers or criminal bosses, organizations, what have you? What happens to the drugs that they get? I don't know any of that stuff. Like, I just genuinely don't know. I'm not like implicating anything. I genuinely don't know what they do with the money slash drugs slash contraband slash whatever that they obtain from these kinds of events? Question mark.
But as he loaded them into his car, state police arrested him on charges of possession of gambling equipment. The charges were subsequently dropped, however, and Justice of the Peace H.H. Chin ordered the machines destroyed. If you're curious about this Calandros individual, that is another rabbit hole, and I don't want to stray too far away from Mothman, but essentially, Calandros' name shows up in gambling raids going back to the 70s. They were linked to illegal slot machines and even connected to mobster Paul Hankish. In 1969, both Paul Hankish and Leo Calandros were indicted for receiving and trying to resell over 400 stolen women's dresses from an upscale shop in Bexley, Ohio. Being able to steal and sell 400 high-end dresses, to me, implies some kind of smuggling ring. Now, a few years later, they were being investigated for a like a stolen car operation, but the district judge acquitted Hankish, ruling that there wasn't enough evidence to convict him.
Was the judge in on it? You on their side or what?
The Naples team was starting to piece things together. They had locals yelling at them, anonymous death threats, the mafia stories. It all looked really, really bad. And lo and behold, the Harris Steakhouse, where they were allowed to film, had these gambling machines. They were captured on film by the Naples crew. From the mafia's point of view, this probably looked really bad. You had outsiders coming into West Virginia with professional film equipment, capturing footage of their illegal money laundering scheme. The breaking point, however, came during a planned night shoot in the woods. As they were setting up, something truly terrifying happened. An armed man appeared out of nowhere with an assault rifle. This was apparently one of the same men who had been watching them at the diner.
I think
In the 90s? With an assault rifle? I'm gonna guess. Sure.
at least 5 different members of Doug to Naples' crew all separately told me that anecdote about them filming in the woods, and then this man who was in the diner earlier shows up randomly with an assault rifle. They were not hunting rifles, the crew told me. It was an assault rifle. Nothing ended up happening. He just kind of seemed to be asking why they were there. A couple of to Naples' crew recalled that he specifically said he was there to protect them, whatever that meant. The mystery is why this guy, and why this guy who was keeping an eye on them in the diner. Why the same guy, with an assault rifle of all things,
He's there to protect them? Question mark. Like, who is this guy? Question mark. So if you were just walking around with an assault rifle, you're gonna get in trouble. So is this guy actually a good guy? Question mark. Since you think you can't just be walking around with an assault rifle unless you're someone special? Question mark. Because if you're a bad guy, you would think you would get arrested? Question mark. Maybe. What if this guy was just like a vigilante or something that was trying to protect them from the mafia? You never know, right?
While the man seemed friendly, the crew got the message. Production was soon over. By that point, Naple and the rest of the crew had enough and got out as fast as they could. They were already a bit on the edge, but no film was worth dying for. After wrapping up the remaining shots as quickly as possible, the crew sped out of Point Pleasant. In total, the crew had about 8 hours of raw footage, which is nowhere near enough for a whole film. TNAPL had
But it's not? 8 hours of raw is not enough to make like an hour film? What?
envisioned a 90-minute movie, but with so many logistical headaches and with his team scared of the project, Doug had no choice but to scrap it. Mothman was never completed, and the film became lost media. It wouldn't be until 2023 when fellow YouTuber Mr. Bones featured Mothman in an episode of his Lost Media Limbo series, bringing renewed attention to the film. And this is where something strange happened. So, just a few days after Mr. Bones' video, an anonymous individual came forward claiming to have worked with Doug TNAPL in the past and possessed a copy of an unfinished cut of Mothman. This person provided Mr. Bones with a digital file containing a 22-minute cut of the film, making it viewable for the first time in years. As of now,
I was gonna say, like, where are we getting this footage from? The film, we would assume, is a film?
that 22-minute cut remains on the Internet Archive, and while the full 90-minute film will likely never be released, I can't really blame TNAPL and his crew for abandoning ship. Anyways, I wanted to share the story because it is probably the wildest reason for why a film became lost. Like I said, I don't know if we'll ever see TNAPL's vision come to life. He had a lot more he wanted to do with the film, but it's just been far too long for them to go back and finish it, you know? Apparently, they did have plans to go back and finish the film in the year 2000, but sadly, one of the music composers suddenly died, and production just sort of fizzled away. So for now, Mothman will remain partially lost. I want to give thanks to Matthew for conducting some serious investigative work in this mystery. His documentary will be linked down below.
Anyone who's interested in seeing this documentary, it's very, very easy to find. They just go to my Substack, which is called Commendable Commotion, and for a $5 subscription, they can watch the entire feature-length documentary with all the interviews and evidence about the stuff that we've been discussing and more. So I think people will enjoy this. There's some really dark stuff that people can go digging into after they watch it. So people can find that at Commendable Commotion.
Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed.
Alright, so that was that. So it wasn't as crazy as I might have thought. I mean, the video's only like 20-something minutes long, so it makes sense that nothing too crazy happens. Again, still don't know if that guy at the end was actually a bad guy or not. He could have been a good guy, actually trying to protect them from the Mafia. Who knows? But yeah, the weird thing about this is that this was trying to be made in like 97, right? Mothman. But I'm pretty dang sure that a Mothman movie came out in the, the turn of the new millennium, right? The new millennia. So someone was like, I don't care, we're going to go make our own Mothman movie. I'm assuming it wasn't him. There's a Mothman movie from the 2000s that came out. So literally only a few years after this guy tried to go make a movie where there was a Mothman. Like, I can try to look it up to see what it was. I forgot what it was called. Was it Mothman Prophecy or something like that? Yeah, the Mothman Prophecies. This movie came out in 2002, literally 5 years after they made this attempt, right? Because it was in the 90s, but I kept saying 97, so I think 1997, around there, is when they were trying to do this. Literally 5 years later, they made the Mothman Prophecies, which I think takes place in, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, ? So it's like, 5 years later, the place was cleaned up and they were able to make this movie, which I have seen this back in the early 2000s. I haven't seen it since. I don't know if it's good or not. It might actually be pretty bad. I don't know if it's a good movie. I feel that there's a lot of thrillers, maybe you would say suspenseful thrillers is what this would be considered back then, with this kind of feel, maybe. Because didn't Zodiac Killer come out around here too, like the early 2000s? I say the early 2000s, but just in the 2000s as well. And there's like a lot of just thrillers that I kind of not connect together, but just I don't know where I'm going with that. But yeah, again, it's weird that this Mothman movie could not come to fruition when this movie was made 5 years later. Which, the fact that it came out 5 years later means it was being recorded earlier than that, years before that possibly. So they could have been filming this in 2000, or even in the 90s, like 1999. So how did it just get cleaned up a few years later, or were they just screwing around with them? Or when they came to shoot Mothman Prophecies, did they just think it was the same people again, trying to finish the film again? So I'm kind of confused on that entire aspect, just as someone who knows something about that. The fact that I know the movie, The Mothman Prophecies, exists. I don't know, so maybe go watch that. Again, I can't uh, give you any info on whether it's a good movie or not, or a bad movie, but I just know it exists, and I've watched it a long time ago. That is going to be it for today. Again, don't really have much to say. I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow. Uh, got to do something tomorrow that's going to take a lot of time, so I don't think I'm going to have the willpower to do anything crazy, so it might just be a Dark Asia with Megan video or something. Because tomorrow's going to be pretty rough for me, I think. Pretty rough today, going into tomorrow. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. So yeah, guys, thanks for... Well, I cannot help myself but keep saying, hey, guys. But yeah, cuties. Thanks for watching. Remember to buy my stickers. If you think about becoming a member, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We're going to watch time and subscribers. And over here we have a throne now as well. And shout out to the members, EmmyStarr, RaleyDrew, and alexgkiller 880. Be the cuties. Thanks for watching. Tune to the next episode. Like, subscribe, comment. As I do. See ya.